Okay, hi everyone. Hi. Yeah, welcome to Peters Valley Instructor Presentation. I'm not gonna read that. All right, so if you've never been here before, this is how it works. Our instructors are going to come up and talk for about 10 minutes about their work, about what got them here to Peters Valley. We have some people on Zoom watching us, and some people are here in person, so we're going to get started. I'm going to tell a possum joke, as I will be doing in between each presenter because it's possum week. So I was driving my kid to school yesterday when we saw a roadkill on the street. My kid said, "What is that furry dead animal? A possum?" And I said, "Possibly." Nice. All right. So first up, we have our instructor in the fine metal studio, Don Lombard, introduced by our fine metal assistant, Wyatt NP. You from.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm here to introduce Dawn. Dawn Lombard is right over there, and she is the instructor for fine metals this week. She's an enamelist, and she's from the area, and she's been enameling for over 20 years. Oh, I'm too tall for this. So she'll be up, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself and a little bit about her work.
Look at that smile. I look pretty happy. Well, actually, I won an award. So I was at a show and I was really excited because I won an award. I don't usually smile that much. But anyway, who am I? So besides my big hair, this was my high school graduation picture. I really wanted to be what's called a hand rendering graphic designer, meaning I wanted to draw with my hands and be a graphic designer. And I even said that in my high school graduation yearbook. So I started college and I enrolled in the arts program. And within 2 years of starting my art program, my dad said to me, "You know what? Computers are going to take over and you're going to sit in front of a box all day. You're not going to draw with your hands." And I go, "I'm not going to draw with my hands, but that's what I want to do." So I said, "No way." And I stopped my art program there and I went into business. And that was honestly the last time I created with my hands. So flash forward 20 years. Guess where I ended up? In front of a box, which I didn't want to do. So I became a syndicated data analyst, and I was doing really, really well in my career. And I was climbing the corporate ladder, was making more money. And I thought, you know what? Life's really good. I was working for Pfizer at one point. I was working for Heineken, Johnson & Johnson, the best of the best, right? But I also felt like something was missing and I couldn't put my finger on it. In 2006, that's me in my wedding dress. That's my sister. My sister said, "Dawn, why don't you come to a class with me and we'll make some beads. We'll melt some glass. You like kind of chill out a little bit because you're a little high strung, a little type A." I said, "I really don't want to. She's my sister." So I had to do it. So I took this dang class. Oh my freaking God. I was melting glass. I was using my hands. I was creating things again, like I did back in college, and I forgot all about it. And when I finished this class of glass bead making, I said, son of a gun, this is what I'm missing. And I get goosebumps every time I think about this point in my life, because I thought I had my career path planned. I thought everything that I was supposed to do was planned. Guess what? God laughs at you when you say you got a plan, because my plan completely changed when I took this class. And guess what? I got pretty damn good at it. I was featured in some catalogs. I was featured in a book. Here I am selling at a gallery, won some awards, featured again in a book. I started teaching. I got really good. So my business was born, and I named it Lavender Dawn. Sounds like a stripper name, doesn't it? Yeah, I'd say so. Now in hindsight, I picked Lavender Dawn because the scent of lavender made me calm and relaxed. And that's what I felt like when I did my glass work. I felt calm and relaxed. However, it still sounded like a stripper name. But then I'm still working full time in corporate America. And every day I would drive to work in tears. I don't want to do this anymore. And so one morning, on a whim, I called my husband. I said, Andrew, I can't do this anymore. He said, quit. I went, wait, what? He goes, quit. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, quit. He says, we'll move from Connecticut. We'll move to Pennsylvania. Our cost of living will drop by half. And you can do this full time. I go, what? I said, done. I quit. So then it got serious. So then Lavender Dawn went away and it was just me, the artist. And I got really serious about it. And I started making these beautiful glass beads and this beautiful jewelry. And then 2 years into it, son of a geezer, you hear of Pandora? Son of a bitch. It ruined my business because I was making glass beads from scratch out of rods of glass that came from Italy. And I'm selling for maybe $30 a piece. And here's Pandora, $10, $15. Are you kidding me? They were mass producing them. So this kind of killed my business. So I never give up. I switched gears. I was watching YouTube videos. What else can I do? How can I evolve myself? So this is enamel. Enamel is used to decorate glass beads. So I had tons of it. I also wanted to learn how to metalsmith. So I started watching more and more videos. Then it blew up because I saw a video where this person put enamel on metal and my head went, I have not made a glass bead since. I now am exclusively an enamelist and metalsmith. And if you look at the bottom 3 pictures, those are my early works. Embarrassing to me now, but that's where I started. What I was really proud of is you can't go to Michael's or Joanne and buy pieces like this. At the time, you can still buy lampwork beads. You could still buy glass beads and string them. And they would look sort of like mine, not as good as mine, but sort of like mine. But you can't buy this stuff in the store. And I was hooked. And I got good at it again. So now I'm showing my work at shows, juried shows across the mid-Atlantic. I'm not sure if you're aware of these shows, but they are the creme de la creme. And I'm so proud and I'm so humbled that I was able to switch from corporate America to glass bead maker to enamelist metalsmith. And now I am here teaching at Peters Valley. My first time. I'm so proud. I'm humbled to be here and thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. That was awesome. Okay. Next up in blacksmithing, we have Andrew Meers to introduce and to do the presentation of Meghan Martin, who is not here this week. I'm going to tell a possum joke really fast. Really quick, fast, first. Okay, here we go. What kind of possum do you find laying in the middle of the road?
Good one.
Close. A Himalayan possum. After all, you did find Himalayan in the middle of the road. Pretty good. That was, they only get better. Okay, so here is Andrew Meers.
All right. Good evening. So I'm here to introduce my partner, Megan. She could not be here due to some last minute circumstances, so I apologize. Oh, back away. Okay. Megan is a blacksmith and gardener working in Western North Carolina. She has a shop nearby to Penland School of Craft and has been blacksmithing for about 10 years, a decade. So I'll just get into it. I'm going to just apologize in advance because this is not my presentation, so it might be a little clumsy or awkward. but I do apologize. I'll do my best. So this is Megan in her workshop in the Western NC. She's does a lot of forge work and small scale hand body work, body scale style work. When Megan started blacksmithing, she had a lot of trouble finding a teacher and instructor, and this is going to date us a little, but back then there wasn't a lot of internet access. There wasn't the kind of it wasn't as available to find people who could match up with you, who you felt would be an appropriate fit for your teaching and learning style. So it's much more difficult. So when Megan started, it was just like she found an anvil and was working in a wood fire, and she had this kind of rudimentary setup. That's really how she got her start. This is her friend and her after they worked in the sugar shack, forging out on their like sort of hacked together kind of work set. There's a wood fire. For those of you who know blacksmithing, it's kind of a pretty crude setup. But eventually, Megan was able to learn from a blacksmith in Vermont named Jerry Karuba. Hold on a sec, sorry. He was the first person to be able to show her the craft. And again, back then, it was a little more difficult to meet someone and get to work in their shop. People weren't as open. The community was not nearly as open as it is today, and not having any knowledge of places like Peters Valley made it more difficult. But Jerry was, again, the first person to become her mentor figure. And she was eventually able to apply for a Vermont Folk Life grant and was able to apprentice with Jerry for 2 years. And this is a picture of Jerry forging a heart in the last day in his shop before he retired. And Megan actually went up and got his equipment to continue that tradition. So it's kind of a special relationship for her. It's not going. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is again another picture of her working with Jerry, learning team striking, teamwork. After working with Jerry, she worked for a production smith named Steve Bronstein, and that was her first environment where she's exposed to power tools, welders, fixtures, kind of repeatability, and that type of blacksmithing work. And after working for Jerry and Steve, Megan applied for the Core Fellowship at Penland and spent 2 years there, mostly working and focusing in iron. And she's currently working on a horticulture degree and is really hoping to be able to combine her metalwork and gardening in some kind of way that can be useful to both. She does a lot of utensils and functional work on sort of an everyday scale. So this is our utensil set. It's kind of one of the best pictures before they got all messed up, but she was using texture and mixing mild and stainless, really getting a sense of that forging and the plasticity of the steel. This is a little set of tools, screwdriver, pliers, and a little, I guess, tack hammer. Kind of some work she'd been doing in the past. And Megan grew up in Vermont, where she was working a lot on farms and with animal husbandry. I'm more of a city person, so there's a little juxtaposition there. But as she's moved on in life, she's always tried to continue to foster some kind of farming or gardening within her life. So in this time, since she left home, she's been kind of journey smithing around. And I feel like during that time, trying to pursue blacksmithing, learn more about the craft and the trade and the skills. But in this last little bit, she's sort of starting to come back to that beginning stage where she's more focused on some interest from being younger, gardening and animal. We're slowly collecting more farm animals. In that spirit, these next tools are sort of related to that interest and experience. This is a gardening rake. It's all forged out. The handle is carved by hand, and the ferrule is fabricated. This is a hand hoe that is also same technique. And this is a garden trowel that is same thing, wood handle carved out, ferrule fabricated, and then the trowel blade stuck in the handle. She calls this group Working Only as Fast as the Work. And that's an excerpt from a poem written by her friend Molly Bashaw. And Molly's recent writing is influenced by small scale organic farms that they worked on together. Something that's currently been inspiring to Megan at the moment is called the Joy Generator, which is an NPR project dedicated to the pursuit and importance of joy through science studies. Some examples are like listening to soothing sounds or looking at soothing visuals. And during the beginning of the pandemic, it became sort of a reminder for her that for her making as a act for joy and the creation of joy, and not just something like career pursuit or money driven kind of work. And relating to that idea, sort of got her thinking about her past growing up in Vermont. In Vermont, I don't know, the winters are really long, cold, and gray. And thinking about that made her remember that it changes the way or affected the way she sort of sees the world. She grew up in that place that teaches you through those long winters how to see detail a little better. She likes to look close and find color and texture in a field of white. In this case, the bark of a birch tree with the blue lichen, those little moments that give you a little pop of texture in that kind of austere landscape. And this has helped her, you know, we're thinking of this and remembering this has always helped her keep her mental space positive. Always likes those little details of nature, those little line marks where the skull is grown, bringing that into her sculptural work and bringing that kind of irregular line into like something more rigid like steel. She's always been well influenced by the geologic rock formations, water flow, erosion, geologic time, those kind of outsized forces of nature. So in her sculptural work, she tries to take that and apply that to the way she's moving the metal. This is a sample of cut steel where the steel is cut and then the space between is compressed to give it that kind of geologic layer look. And that's our little cat paw in the background, I guess. In this cross section, you can see metal folding in on itself after being forged and folded. And these little moments, she likes to think of them as like creating her own little moments of awe in the sample or piece or the surface of the material. And then those pieces are brought out onto the wall. This is an example of some older work, but it's like kind of where she tries to go with this, where there's like the cut line pieces forged together, heavily textured, almost like a landscape, and then either naturally finished with the fire scale or painted and brushed back. And then for her more production-y type work, this is the stool. She tries again to like stylize and highlight those little moments. So instead of being looser, they're more refined, more defined. This is a stool. It's been forged and fabricated, salvaged metal. This is a further out picture, sorry. And then again, taking that work, the textures and qualities of that sculpture work and bringing it back into functional objects for the home, where she can have a little bit of creative expression on something that's a little more functional or dialed in. These are next few are plant vases, and she's excited to be able to continue to work and combine plant material with her forgings and some kind of juxtaposition with the industrial look of steel, and mixing that as well with glass. And this last piece is a collaboration we did together. She gave me some cut line steel and I fabricated and engraved the box. And she's really excited to be able to continue this work because hopefully our working styles can complement each other. And she says to say hello, and she apologizes again for not being around or up here and able to teach, and just wanted me to say thank you for letting me share some of her work with y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. All right. Next up in the woodworking studio, we have Monaco, introduced by the wood assistant Jason. Gonna tell a possum joke, obviously. Nobody's surprised by that. Let me do this first. All right, possum joke. That's the one from before. Here we go. A vulture walks up to the counter at an airport dragging a dead possum. Sir, will we be checking any bags today? Vulture says, nope, just carry on. Carry on. carry on. Okay, okay, pretty good stuff. All right, here is Jason to introduce Matt Monaco.
Hello, everybody. I am Jason, the woodworking assistant. Matt Monaco is a nationally renowned wood turner who runs quite the gambit around the country, teaching, wheeling, and dealing. If you're someone who is into print media, catch him in the latest issue of Fine Woodworking magazine. He's also a two-time international rock, paper, scissors champion. Please welcome Matt.
Kind of introductions worthy of a handshake. So I will say thank you guys for having me out here. This is a great honor for me. I always like to be able to share the things that I've picked up, learned, and can show others. And so I'm really happy to do that. So thank you for that first. My story is, well, everyone has one, right? And they're all kind of long. So a little bit of mine is that my actual background in wood turning started out as a furniture maker, and I was a very abysmal, awful, horrible furniture maker. Not a very good furniture maker, but I was in an environment where I actually had to learn how to apprentice and make furniture well enough to be able to stay on and make the objects that were required for the turning, and that was at Shackleton Thomas in Bridgewater, Vermont. So I actually moved from Phoenix, Arizona to the Northeast and spent some time out there apprenticing. And once I got through that, I was able to stay on, and I still to this day make all of the bowls for the company Shackleton Thomas. And after that, there was a strong enough demand for what I do in the way that I do it, I guess, that some people wanted to know more about how I did. So I got into education and teaching and sharing. And that's what I really have to say that I really love now. I'm going to go ahead and go through this and see what's there. That's me in my old shop, just kind of going at it, just making, turning the exterior of a bowl that's from unseasoned material. Let's see, that's the end result right there. And those aren't finished pieces. Those are just things that actually need to go through a drying stage so that I can actually turn a second time. They're thick enough pieces that if I turn them a second time after they've seasoned, I'm able to actually finish them and to completion. So then there's more. This would be a finished item right there. That's made out of black cherry. And let's see, what else do we have in here? I'm actually curious because I didn't plan for this at all. I just say, oh, you should go do it. I didn't plan for it enough that I have an actual presentation. So I'm just kind of pretty raw up here, but this is fun. This is a piece of black walnut right here. And it just goes to show with the type of vessel, and I'll stay on this one actually, given that at the place where I make items for regularly, Shackleton Thomas, this would be actually a piece that was I made this there and their environment. And they make very thin walled vessels. So I don't make furniture, but I do make the very thin walled open form vessels. And so that's kind of that. This over here is that's a nested set right there, made out of a burl. So that's basically just four pieces out of one burl right there. Something that would be a little bit more relevant for this week, at least in my case, is to take a look at these pieces right here. These are enclosed forms, or I should say semi-enclosed. They're not entirely enclosed, and they just go to show the kind of thing that we're working on this week and going through technique and making sense of that. So these would be considered I'd call this just a very elegant semi-enclosed type of vessel. And let's see over here. This is kind of like I call these is kind of sort of like wood flowers. This is like a turned item that is sort of there to resemble flowers. This is another version of kind of an enclosed style vessel as well. And this is a piece of cherry. I call this piece astral just because it kind of to me looks like it has a star, kind of looks like a star. That's at least how I see that piece. And then there's just a number of different items on here. So one of the things that I like in my work that I should say that I appreciate in wood, in working with wood, particularly unseasoned material, is the natural warpage built into the process. When I turn thin enough, something that sort of looks like a potato chip on the rim is something that I appreciate and like. And this would actually still be considered a functional item. So that's the same thing right there, same thing right there. This is more of a platter. Given that I live in the Ozark region of Missouri, this is kind of something that I like to make. And the type of wood here is called silver maple. Pretty common in my area. It actually grows like a weed. And but you can see that from the figure of it, and this is the same piece right there, or at least a similar piece, that we just have some really nicely figured material, at least out in that region. I know we do here too, but it's very humid, and that allows for spalting to develop, I think, faster on softer woods, or at least on softer maples, excuse me, which is a hardwood. But I really like to work, I really like very simple items, and but I like to really expose and uncover the natural beauty within them through very simple forms. I like the idea that something can be used and shared with others. So that's something that I really like. This is at an interior designer that I sell to regularly in town in Springfield, Missouri, where I live currently. And so that's what these items are. This is, again, I would say a more relevant picture, given that these are items that are the more rounded rim. And let's see, there's more. That's a natural rim piece that's made out of box elder right there. And there's some platters here. Ozark maple, again, that's just a different picture of the same piece that we've seen before. This is a style that I would refer to as wood pottery, given that it kind of suggests other types of influences. Much of what I learned in wood turning, I should say visually, or where I gained some influence, came from pottery and came from the ceramic world, just in studying forms. I think if you're studying vessel forms in wood, you're really not studying vessel forms in wood. You're studying metal, you're studying ceramics, you're studying those forms. And so those are things I'm really interested in, and I like to sort of give them life in wood and have some perspective on that. So that's an older series right here. My newer, or I should say latest series, is looking kind of like these pieces right here. That's what I'm making. And so I imagine in our class, we'll probably have a few pieces that come out or churned out look kind of like this. And so yeah, that's something I'm happy to see there. That's the same piece. Something that's a little bit more whimsical and kind of fun is something like that. That's actually a spinning top, and all the rings that are on there were all made with a kind of tool that would allow me to, it's a skew chisel, and those will, if I use the tool correctly, I'll either get a horrible catch and the piece will come flying off, or it'll work out good and I'll be able to spin it. And in this case, I was able to put 3 rings on the stem, and so those 3 rings they'll be loose and spin, but they're captured on the actual stem right there. So that's kind of a reflection of a lot of the spindle work that I did too, because when I worked in a furniture environment, I was doing a lot of spindle work as well. So what else is here? That's a nested set, a different type of nested set right there. That's all. It's not one piece. It's four pieces right there. I don't know. I set it up to make it look more interesting than it might actually be, just because it's a very highly figured material. So, but those are the actual pieces right there. This is box elder burl, and that's also box elder burl right there. What else do we have here? Yeah, so that looks like, pretty sure that's mulberry, a nicely figured piece of mulberry. And then this is also red box elder, not burl, but combination of mineral staining and spalting the infiltration of the box elder beetle causes that red stain. And that's the same piece right there. There's some more wood pottery pieces. One that I like here is that's a vessel that was cut straight off the tool, no sanding or finishing on that. One of the things I like to do now at this stage of where I'm at in wood turning is to cut a surface that's clean enough off the tool that doesn't require sanding or really much finishing. That's just kind of what I like to do at this point. That's a little lidded container or box right there. That's made out of cherry, and this would be considered what I would call a classic rim vessel right there. That is just a very simple, basic form, but one that most of my customers that are buying these bowls, they use them for popcorn. They fit into the hand nicely, and I don't know. It's a classic rim bowl. That's what I call it, but it's really just a popcorn bowl. Popcorn or salads, those are popular with people like to eat, right? Where humans eat a lot, especially Americans. We eat way too much. So, and then that's just oiling up a maple burl piece. That was natural rim. This is also a natural rim box elder piece. And then this is just a run of platters that I ended up making. This is at a woodworking event, wood turning club, and so on and so forth. That looks like my time. And again, I greatly appreciate being here and presenting, and hope to run into you guys some more, and we can happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, I'm just gonna do the positive joke first and then I'll say who's going next. This one needs a little bit of background information you may not know. Possums are North America's only native marsupial, right? They have a pouch like kangaroos do, so that's a fun fact, and here's the joke. What do you call a possum that goes back for seconds on soup? A marsupial. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna think about that joke later and laugh and laugh. So next up, we have, last but not least, Amanda Thatch in the Fiber Studio, and introducing her is the Fibers assistant, Amelia Stern.
Hello, everyone. I am Amelia. I'm here to introduce Amanda. At one point in her life, she thought she was going to be a bookbinder. While being a textile, paper, and book binding artist, all she wants to do is read. Her Sunday morning hobby is to read copious amounts of New Yorker articles. What else do I have to say? She will travel long distances for excellent baked goods. I liked that fact. I would do the same. Please help me in welcoming Amanda Thatch.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I am really grateful to Emery and Amelia for helping us get up and running. It's I know that every studio has its own challenges for working within certain timeframes, but I feel like weaving is one thing that I love about it is that it is absolutely uncompromising as to how much time and space it's going to take up. There's becoming fewer spaces to do weaving in academic places because like looms take up a lot of room and you can only have one person on them at a time. And so as far as like efficiency and space, people get really antsy about it. And so I'm really grateful that there are craft centers that are really still offering weaving emphasis classes that people can have some place to learn to use these incredible and beautiful tools. So this is my personal loom. It's a little 8-shaft Gilmore. I really like it. And when I learned to weave at Penland School of Craft maybe 12 years ago, and one of my first weaving teachers, who's still a really great mentor for me, Catherine Ellis, when I realized I was leaving Penland and I was like, oh my gosh, I need my own loom. They're so expensive. She goes, just let the universe know you're looking for one and probably one will show up. And then like a couple months later, somebody called and was just like, do you have anyone who needs a loom? And so I've been able to have this one. But I love using other looms that have other kinds of capabilities whenever I get the chance. So I took like 15 years off between undergraduate and graduate school. I went to Washington University in St. Louis and got a sculpture degree in 2004. And then just graduated with my MFA last summer. So, at University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I went to graduate school, these were 2 looms that they had available. So this is what's called a CompuDobby. So the threads are still operating kind of in groups on frames. There's just a whole lot of frames. So you hook it up to a computer that helps you kind of keep everything organized. And then this one is what's called a TC2, a thread controller 2. And on that one, every thread is controlled individually through like a vacuum system. So again, you work through a computer and it will like raise and lower the threads in these really complicated ways that that would take a million years if you didn't have a computer helping you with it. So in both cases, I am still there throwing the shuttle and building these things up thread by thread. So I think sometimes folks envision computer-aided looms as something that you just like hit print and walk away, but these are still very much a hand process. So I would like to share with you my thesis show from only a little more than a year ago. Also because we were still like vaccines had just become available. We were still under all these COVID protocols. So I had to present a show in order to graduate, but we weren't allowed to like open the gallery. So very few people got to see this show in person. So I'm really happy to share it whenever I have a chance. So it was called Trompe as Writ, and in weaving lingo, there's kind of a shortcut way of writing a weaving pattern that you can just say trompe as writ, and you know that like one part of the pattern can just be transposed into another part of the pattern. So it's just a phrase that I've always liked the sound of. It's got kind of a nice way on the tongue, but then also is kind of a fun way of shorthand. So this is kind of coming into the gallery. This is looking towards the back wall. And this is kind of around from the title wall. So just kind of orient you to the space. So I'm really interested in interactions of text with textile. You know, I thought I was going to be a bookbinder at one point. I really like reading, but I also am really frustrated with kind of the conditions of language, with how short language falls a lot of times for conveying experience. So these are TC2 woven squares, and then the drape around it is woven on the CompuDabi. And on one side, you get kind of this nature image, and then on the other side, you get kind of text coming through. And so this is one cloth, and it's just two different sides that have been orchestrated to have two different things happening. And you're not really meant to be able to read the text. It's more talking about just kind of the condition of living with words as our way of communicating things, but also I was just thinking so much about the experience of being in nature and how hard it is to talk about how meaningful that is. So it's a little hard to tell in these photos, but also the surfaces are kind of dimensional. And then there's like a really thin gold silk thread that's twined in with all of these colors as well. So the tree imagery happened because, like a lot of people in the beginning months of the pandemic, there was a lot of walking just for something to do. So all of a sudden I just started seeing all the trees in my neighborhood and seeing how they were changing over time, like really being able to spend that time to pay attention to them. And then that fall, when I went back to Madison, I was just like fully stopped in my tracks by the sights of these amazing fall trees in ways that I had just never happened to me before. And I still just don't think I have the right kind of language for it. So it was just kind of trying to put words and these images in the same place, but in ways that I know they're not really going to fully encompass each other. So these are just screenshots of the camera roll on my phone from that time. The cloths draped around, like I said, they're woven on the CompuDabi, so they're a little more repeat pattern oriented. And the designs are built by putting letter forms into the setup of the loom. So this one you can see is the letter E over here in what's called the tie-up of the weaving pattern. And then here's the letter Y, and you can see how that gets kind of transposed into a repeat pattern design on the cloth. And when those are draped around each piece, I feel like they're a little bit like a garment or a scarf, but they also kind of create this sort of portal to a different space. So I also really love paper as a material. And so these are kind of these long scrolls that were, I had to do all these readings in grad school, and I am not built to read on a screen. So I had to like print everything out, and I just had this huge stack of paper that I now like feel responsible for in the world. And so I was taking these and I would starch the paper to make it a little bit stronger, and I would just crumple them over and over and over and over again until the words kind of became were like wearing off of the page. And then I would also take the kind of scraps of the paper and spin them into these kind of rowdy paper threads that would be around it. So I just think about how much I would read, how little I would retain, but also how whatever it does stick kind of gets recycled into these other types of ideas in ways that you might not expect. These two were floor pieces. And so these are, again, TC2 woven of like tree shadows. I was thinking of those as like writing that happens on the ground. And they are paired with these weavings here that are a traditional overshot pattern called blooming leaf. And those were done on my little 8-shaft loom. So I was really curious as to how these pieces woven on different looms that each have different capabilities and kind of different aesthetics, how those could be put together. And then there's the kind of industrial side of weaving as well. And so on this is an artist book that I made, but it's made from an industrially woven blanket. So I sent a like Photoshop file to a company that weaves these blankets, and they sent it back to me just as a full thing. And I had designed it so that I knew what the pages were going to be, and I could cut it apart and put it together into this book that was just all these markings that I would see on the ground. So there's a close-up of that. In weaving, the threads on the loom are called the warp, the threads under tension. And so when you run out of warp, you have the option of you can like take that off and put a whole new one on, or you can tie a new thread to each of what you have on the loom already and just pull those knots through and start up again. So this is kind of how that looks on the loom. And a lot of work goes into these knots, and that's technically waste yarn. That's like not anything that gets woven in. So this is tying knots onto the TC2 at University of Wisconsin, and there were 2,640 threads here. And so I was just thinking about all the labor that goes into these things that just get thrown away. And so I started just like keeping them in my studio, because I also another reason I became a textile person, I just love the look of yarn. It has this sheen to it. It has this drape to it. And so these like batches of yarn with these knots in it started being something that I was really happy to look at just by themselves. And so while I was at UW, I also met a really amazing writer named Zoe Cohen. And I got to work with her on an artist book that used her text and my images. And then we had a book designer, Ellie Annand, who made this incredible design for us. So these are just page spreads from the book. And we, of course, don't have time to read all of it, but I just wanted to read you a tiny bit of it. So one excerpt is from this page is, the thing that struck me most when I first met Amanda was the athleticism of weaving, the physical stamina needed to pass that shuttle back and forth again and again, the constant motion required until finally the tree emerges. What strikes me most today is the emotional muscularity of weaving, the mental stamina needed to pass all that time. There's no telling where the mind will go as we wait and wait and wait to see what will be. And then just very quickly, as one final page spread. And as much as I couldn't get enough of trees before this year, I can't get enough of clouds. And so I had an opportunity really recently, like 2 weeks ago, to go to a place called Praxis Fiber Workshop in Cleveland. And they have a TC2 that artists can use for 2 weeks at a time. So I dyed a warp for it, and these are just some process shots of doing a custom warp dyeing. You are now familiar with how one ties onto the loom, and then the kind of satisfying shot of it getting on there. And these are some kind of very rough, straight off the loom on the studio floor shots of what I was making there. And so I'm now just looking at these at home and trying to figure out what to do with them next. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to all our instructors tonight who presented. Last one is gonna be really quick. This is really quick. What do you call an Irish possum? An opossum. Quick little one to end us out, but thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the rest of your workshops. If you have any questions, the office is open tomorrow. Office is open tomorrow, and you can let your fellows and assistants know. So please enjoy the rest of your workshop. Have a great night.
Hello, and thank you so much for watching this program. Peters Valley would like to thank its sponsors for making programs like this possible. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Peters Valley's channel to receive more like it in the future.